Hey, small group leaders, Pastor Javon Legons here. Again, if we haven't met, I have the honor and privilege of being the small groups pastor of our Norcross campus and being able to support that team. And it is my honor just to be with you guys here today and just share a few thoughts. But before I do, I just want to say thank you so much for your leadership. And I know it can be repetitive to hear that. I know every time I do one of these videos, I'm always started off by saying, thank you so much for your leadership, but I mean it sincerely, as not only as a small groups pastor or as a small group leader myself, but even as someone who is a small group member, who is a part of a small group. I think about it from this perspective. Where would I be, or how would this season have gone for me personally, if not for the godly men and women that God placed in my life for this season, for me to be able to talk to, pray with, and come alongside and do life with, to be able to say, hey, I'm not handling this thing over here that well. Like, this is really getting to me, or I need some perspective on this situation that's happening over here in my life. And I just need someone to talk to, and being able to talk to someone openly and honestly and pray with someone and be pointed back to the Bible. That's always a big deal. And I know that that's happening for me. And I know that you who are watching this video, you are providing that. I pray that that same experience is happening for you in this season. But you watching this video, you're providing that for thousands of people. The hundreds of you who are small group leaders are doing that for thousands of people who are part of Victory Church, and even not yet a part of Victory Church. And the reach of that has just been so amazing to see from this view. So I just want to say thank you so much for your leadership. And I don't say that tritely. I don't say that as something just to say. I sincerely mean it. Because of you, lives are being saved, and people are being encouraged to not give up in a season where so many people are giving up and giving in to the enemy's plan for their life. So thank you so much for your leadership. So one thing that you can look forward to, and the reason why we're making this video, is that for the rest of this fall semester, every week, our intention is to provide just words of encouragement, and really just to discuss with you some of the things that God has laid on our heart as we lead, that may be helpful in your small group leadership. So you'll hear from me, you'll hear from a few of the other small group pastors from our campuses, and you'll hear from a few of the other staff pastors that are on staff here at Victory, every single week, hopefully, as we move forward through this semester, just because we want to encourage you with what God has been using to encourage us. And as we were thinking about this, I was thinking, okay, well, what would I say to our group of small group leaders that would be encouraging, or that God has really been challenging me with? And there's 150 different directions that you can take when you're talking about, okay, well, what are some of the things that have really been challenging me in this season in leadership? And as I was thinking about what to do a brief video on, the verse in 1 Corinthians 11:1 kept coming back to mind. Every single subject kept coming back to that. And in 1 Corinthians 11:1, it says, imitate me as I imitate Christ. And that's Paul speaking, and he's talking to that church in Corinth. Imitate me as I imitate Christ. Model me as I model Christ. And, I began to understand more fully the truth of that, the truth of, look, anything good in leadership, anything good in my own Christian walk, really is going to come from me modeling Christ. The best example that I can grab from the Bible, the best stories that I can grab from the Bible of how to be an impactful and influential leader in my own small group or in my own life, come as I imitate Christ. So, what better person to look at, what better model to look at than the life of Christ as we examine our own leadership? So I begin to think about, okay, what areas of the life of Christ, would I want to focus on in this season? And of course, this isn't an all-inclusive list. because I condensed it down to three simple things that I wanted to keep in mind during this season of leading for myself. And I condensed it down to three I's. And I'm not going to tease you with it. We're only going to talk about one I today. It's three words that start with I. We're only going to talk about one today, but the three of them are to be intentional, to be innovative, and to be inspirational. And we'll talk about each of these in its own separate video, but I wanted to start with the intentionality of Christ. And as I thought about the intentionality of Christ, I thought about the story in Luke 10. In Luke 10, verse 1, it starts by telling the story of when Jesus sent out the 72 disciples. And it says that at that time, Jesus sent out 72 disciples. He sent them out in pairs, and he sent them to all the villages and towns which he himself was about to go. So basically, this talks about Jesus's plan for how he sent out those 72 disciples. He sent them out in pairs, very strategic process, very strategic plan, and he sent them to the villages and towns that he himself was about to go. First of all, I think that's a beautiful picture of what biblical community does. We go out as God's representatives, as small group leaders, and he sends us into the spaces where he himself intends to show up. So as we lead, as we draw people into our groups, as we invite people into those safe places, God does a work in our lives, and then he sends us out to the places where he himself is going to show up in a big way beyond what we could ever anticipate. So that's one aspect of it, but I really just begin to marvel at the intentionality of Jesus there. Because the rest of Luke 10, after he had this very specific plan, hey, got 72 guys, gonna send you out to 36 something different villages and towns, to the places where I'm getting ready to go myself. But the rest of Luke 10 is him explaining to them, all right, this is what you're going to encounter. This is what you may experience. And when you experience that, this is how you can react to it. So he gave them a plan, and he laid out for them specifically, this is what you can expect while you're out on the road. And he laid it out for them, and they were able to go out fully aware of what God expected of them and what they could expect as they travel. I think we can take that same model of leadership in our small group leadership. Let's be intentional. So as we lead in this next season, I think one of the best and most gracious things that we can do for the people who are in our small groups, and even for ourselves as leaders, is to lay out, okay, this is the process that we're going to go through. This is our intention. We're starting here and we're going to end here. I think even in our times together for the hour and a half, 2 hours, 1 hour, whatever that time is that we're together, to say, hey guys, this is where we're starting, and by God's grace, this is where we're going to end up after our time together. That level of intentionality, I believe, always produces results. Just like it says in Proverbs, without a plan, the people perish. We know that with the plan, we can prosper. We know that by laying out the expectation for our groups, it's easier for people to follow. So even as we lead, I believe that's something very kind that we can do for ourselves and for the people who are a part of our groups. You know, being able to lay out the expectation, hey, this is where we're starting. This is what we're asking God to do in our hearts during our time together. And by God's grace, we'll get there together. That level of intentionality always wins. And that allows us to imitate Christ as we go throughout our life. So I would challenge you with that, because that's something I'm challenging myself with in this season, just for my own leadership, whether it be in ministry, whether it be in my personal small group or in other areas of my life. I want to imitate Christ with intentionality. So thank you guys so much for this time together. Again, thank you so much for leading and for being with me these last couple of minutes as I just share that quick thought. Thank you. Love you guys. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.